Maybe you are here because you are tired. You've been walking the path of faith for decades. You've seen miracles. You've felt the fire of the early days. You've made the commitments that last a lifetime. You know the promises are true, but lately, the journey feels less like a mountaintop and more like a desert floor. There is a strange, heavy stillness to this season. You look at the calendar, and the pages are turning, but the horizon is not changing. You pray for direction, for a fresh wind, but all you hear is silence, and all you see is sand. Perhaps you've experienced a profound loss, the sudden silence where life used to be loud. Or maybe it's a slow, directionless wait, a spiritual dryness where the wells seem to have closed up. You feel stalled. You feel the ache of unfulfilled time. The fear whispers, is this it? Is my season of movement over? Friend, your heart is not the first to feel this exhaustion, this confusion, this deep sense of being stuck. Turn your gaze back across the centuries to a dusty, desperate people. The Israelites, fresh from the miracle of freedom at the Red Sea, found themselves walking in circles. 40 years in the quiet, unforgiving wilderness. A whole generation walking, praying, and circling, all while feeling utterly delayed. The distance from Egypt to the promise was short, but the journey of the heart was long. The desert was a mirror for their restless, fearful hearts, and it's a mirror for yours too. It was a place designed not to break them, but to prepare them, to strip away the reliance on the comfortable past and train them in fierce, quiet dependence on God alone. In their 40 years of wandering, God left us 20 quiet lessons. Each one is a whisper of grace carved into the stone and written in the dust, meant for the days we feel most stranded. They are the truth written in the sand. God is leading, even when we stand still, before we walk into the quiet lessons of the wilderness. If this voice, if this space of deep reflection brings rest to your soul, consider staying a while. We are a quiet community dedicated to finding God in the long, slow seasons. Subscribe now to keep this space for peace open for you every week. Lesson 1. God brings us to stillness before He moves us forward. Their first major stop after freedom was the Red Sea. They hit a wall. Behind them, the past and Pharaoh's relentless army. Ahead, the impossible water. They could not retreat, and they could not advance. They were forced into a position of absolute stillness. This moment was terrifying, but it was essential. God wasn't just showing them His power. He was teaching them trust right at the outset. Maybe that's where you are today, at an unavoidable barrier, forced to pause. You are not stuck. You are being positioned. God brought you to this stillness to force your eyes off the enemy and onto the deliverer. He wants you to see His nature before He asks you to take the next great step. The greatest movement often begins with a quiet, certain stand. Lesson 2. God's delays are not denials. They are divine preparations. The promised land was a few weeks' walk, yet it took 40 years. The delay felt like a cosmic denial of the promise itself. We often make the mistake of measuring God's intent by our immediate experience. The vision He gave you years ago, the one that still burns faintly in your heart, it is not gone. It is simply being tempered. A delay is not a sign of God's rejection. It is evidence of His careful preparation. He is preparing the land for you, and perhaps more importantly, He is preparing you for the land. What you inherit must be matched by the character you possess. That takes time. Trust the enduring promise over the immediate slow horizon. Lesson 3. The desert is a classroom, not a prison. The word wilderness can sound like a sentence, like being locked away from favor. But the desert has a unique purpose. It is the place God sends you when He wants your full, undivided attention. The sand strips away the noise of the old life, the distractions of ambition, and the easy answers of culture. In the quiet, you learn a new raw dependence. You are not jailed here. You are being taught to lean on His voice alone. Every dry season forces a deeper, more necessary root. Embrace the lesson hidden in the heat. The greatest lessons are quietly written on the driest ground. Lesson 4. When you can't see the cloud, stay where the manna falls. Sometimes the visible pillar of cloud or fire, the grand, directional sign of God, is nowhere to be seen. The spiritual fervor is low. You've lost the big vision. What do? You look down. You gather the manna, the simple, daily, consistent provision. You focus on the small, quiet grace God gave you this morning. The strength to get out of bed, the gentle word spoken, the simple food on your table. Don't waste energy chasing a future you can't see. Be faithful with the daily bread. The direction for the year is hidden in the faithfulness for the day. Lesson 5. Complaints echo louder than faith. Until you choose silence. The murmurings of Israel were a constant, corrosive sound that poisoned the whole camp. They amplified their present pain and dimmed the memory of God's past miracles. When you feel stuck, your frustration can become a loud noise, drowning out the voice of God. The moment you complain, you surrender the opportunity for gratitude. Choose silence. Choose the quiet, intentional recollection of God's prior faithfulness. Do not let your current discomfort invalidate the history of His help. Worship is the only sound that truly quiets the desert's echo. If these ancient stories are bringing courage to your quiet season, I invite you to click the subscribe button and the notification bell below. When the journey feels long and the direction is lost, let this space be a constant reminder that God is still in the details. Let us walk this path of enduring faith together. Lesson 6. Miracles can feel ordinary. When you're tired for 40 years, they ate bread from heaven every morning and drank water from a rock. But the sheer repetition, coupled with the fatigue of walking, made the miraculous feel common, even boring. When you've walked with God for decades, the consistent kindnesses, your health, your family, your very breath, the simple provision of your daily needs, can lose their wonder. Don't let exhaustion steal your awe. You are still sustained by a supernatural power. Look closely. A miracle is still a miracle, even if it happens every single day. Lesson 7. God leads step by step, not all at once. They never had a full, comprehensive map of the whole 40 years. They only had the immediate instruction of the cloud and the fire. It moved. They moved. It stopped. They stopped. We, in our modern wisdom, long for a 5-year detailed business plan. God offers us the next 5 feet. His guidance is a light for the next step, not the final destination. He keeps the big picture, and He asks you to simply trust the very next command. This keeps you constantly dependent and instantly responsive. The full picture is always reserved for the journey's end. Lesson 8. Obedience opens roads maps can't show. There was no logical human-designed path that sustained 3 million people through that wasteland. Their survival depended on a radical, childlike obedience to an invisible commander. They had to pick up manna, strike a rock, and move camp, often with no clear physical reason. When you feel stuck and the logical solution fails, remember this. The step of obedience God asks you to take, however small or illogical it seems, creates the very path you need to walk on. Trust the simple command more than the complicated compass. Lesson 9. When you miss Egypt, remember what God saved you from in their hunger and exhaustion. They remembered the leeks and the garlic of Egypt. They forgot the whip and the chains. They forgot the cries of their children under the weight of forced labor. When your current stillness is painful, it's tempting to look back at an old life, a past comfort, or a former season, and idealize it. Nostalgia has a terrible memory. Remember the bondage, friend. God saved you out of that to bring you into something better, even if the transition is uncomfortable. Nostalgia often forgets the high cost of the former life. Lesson 10. The cloud moves. When your heart is ready, the cloud, the pillar of God's manifest presence, was the sole catalyst for movement. They didn't move it. They simply followed it. The delays, the long stops, were never about God not being ready to lead. They were about His people needing to be prepared, purged, and united in their hearts. The stillness stops when the lesson takes root, when the fear has been exchanged for faith. God waits for your internal readiness. The waiting is not a waste. It is the time of internal, necessary refining. Lesson 11. Provision prepares you for promise. The 40 years of daily bread wasn't just a strategy to keep them alive. It was a profound act of spiritual training. They had to learn to depend on the supplier, not the supply itself. When you finally inherit the promised land, where you will sow and harvest on your own, you must be a person of fierce, disciplined faith. The desert provision is making you ready for the great, abundant inheritance to come. Every gift in the desert is a training tool for the harvest. Lesson 12. Forgiveness keeps you from circling old ground. The Israelites often had to deal with internal strife, rebellion, and bitterness, which were as deadly as the heat outside the camp. Unforgiven sin, unaddressed bitterness, and the wounds you refuse to heal keep you bound to the past. If you are stuck in a cycle of hurt, look to your heart. Forgive yourself and forgive others. The spiritual act of forgiveness is what frees your feet from the heavy anchor of old resentment, allowing you to move forward when the cloud finally lifts. The greatest obstacle is often the bitterness you choose to carry. Lesson 13. The long way was always the safe way. God didn't lead them the direct, short way along the coast. He knew if they saw war too early, their spirits would break, and they would immediately panic and return to Egypt. The long, silent, circuitous route was not his incompetence. It was his profound protection. Your longest delay, your quietest season, may be the very thing preserving you for the moment of battle you are not yet ready to face. Trust the detour. God's protection often wisely looks like a lengthy detour. Lesson 14. Faith grows in the dry places, not the easy ones. The desert offers no natural comfort, no easy refuge, no lush, obvious resources. It is harsh and unforgiving. This is precisely where faith is forged, not simply inherited. The dry season tests the very truth of your trust. It forces you to draw from a well you cannot see, to rely on a source that is wholly supernatural. The unwavering conviction you will carry into your next season. You would never have gained without this necessary dust. The harshest heat makes the deepest seed stronger. Lesson 15. Your shoes didn't wear out for nothing. Think for a moment about the shoes. 40 years of walking over jagged rock, through burning sand and across endless plains. 40 years of wear and tear, sun and dust. Yet their garments did not wear out, and their shoes did not grow old on their feet. This is one of the most tender, overlooked details of the entire journey. It was a tangible, daily, gentle miracle that spoke volumes to a weary people. I will sustain you down to the smallest, most necessary detail of your existence. We tend to look for the Red Sea moment, the grand, shattering intervention. But God often reveals his profound faithfulness in the utter lack of decay, in the quiet miracle of maintenance. Maybe you are bone-tired today. You feel the miles in your bones, the exhaustion of carrying a burden for years, the slow, wearing friction of the desert. You may feel like everything in your life should have broken down by now. But pause, friend, and look at the life you still have. Look at the health you maintain, the sanity you still hold, the small circle of love that remains steady. He is still sustaining your very ability to stand and keep moving. The simple fact that you have endured is a miracle of his gentle hand. He didn't just provide manna to keep the body alive, he preserved the means of the journey itself. If your hope hasn't completely withered, if your ability to pray hasn't entirely dried up, if you still have the strength to rise in the morning, that is a testimony. It means he is still actively caring for the vessel he called to walk. Don't mistake the lack of disaster for the lack of attention. His preservation is proof of his promise. God's faithfulness is measured in the small, enduring details of your life. Lesson 16. Gratitude turns sand into sanctuary. The emotional atmosphere of the camp shifted constantly. When the Israelites complained about the food, about the water, about Moses' leadership, the desert immediately felt like a harsh, inescapable grave. The sand was just sand. The heat was just judgment. Their focus on lack transformed the wilderness into a prison. But when they paused to remember the deliverance from Egypt, when they looked up at the steady cloud, and when they tasted the miraculous manna, the very same location became something else entirely, a sanctuary. It became a place of quiet communion, a school of dependence, a silent memorial to His power. You cannot always change your external circumstances, especially when you are stuck in a season of waiting. You cannot make the cloud move, but you can radically change the atmosphere of your present moment by choosing gratitude. Gratitude does not erase the ache of the delay, but it recolors the landscape. It transforms a place of lack into a place of His presence. It forces you to acknowledge what you have, His unwavering faithfulness, rather than focusing only on what you lack, the destination. Maybe the sand outside your tent is still hot. Maybe the delay is still confusing. But in your heart, you can choose to build an altar of remembrance. You can choose to find the grace that is specific to this day, this moment. In that moment of true thanks, the desert opens up, and you find a cool space, a secret dwelling place. Even under the scorching sun, gratitude is the unseen oasis that suddenly opens in the heart. Lesson 17. Sometimes God says rest before He says rise. We often assume that if the cloud is still, it means we are failing to find momentum. We worry that the stillness is a direct result of our lack of effort, our lack of planning, or our lack of faith. We equate stagnation with failure, but the cloud stopped often and for long periods, sometimes months, sometimes years. When it stopped, the people were commanded to stop. They were forced to pack up their movement, unpack their lives, and set up camp. They had to learn how to rest fully and without guilt in the middle of a prolonged journey. They learned how to simply be in the presence of the Lord, centered around the tabernacle. Maybe the stillness you feel today is not a failure of momentum, but a divine command to rest. A quiet intervention against your own striving. God knows you have been running hard for decades. He knows the sheer volume of work you have poured into your life, your family, your calling. He may be forcing you to replenish the wells that only quiet solitude can fill. Your strength is not renewed in the running. It is renewed in the stopping. Learn to accept this time as necessary cultivation, not punishment. Learn to trust the divine permission to simply be where He has placed you. The greatest work you can do is learn to rest completely in His perfect timing. Lesson 18. The Promised Land begins with a new mindset. The original adult generation that left Egypt, only 2 people, Joshua and Caleb, entered the Promised Land. This is a terrifying, profound truth. The vast majority made the journey, endured the provision, and saw the miracles, but they died in the desert. Why? Because they carried the mindset of slaves into a land of freedom. They saw giants where they should have seen inheritance. They held on to the complaining, fearful, we can't mindset. The destination is not just a place on a map, it is a condition of the heart. God knew a generation of former slaves could not possess a land of warriors. They needed to be purified of the past. The long walk purified their perspective, separating the spirit of faith from the spirit of fear. If you are stuck today, ask yourself, what old mindset am I carrying with me? Am I carrying the fear of rejection from decades past? Am I carrying the slave mentality that says I am only defined by my work or my visible progress? You must consciously leave that fearful self behind before you can cross the final border into your next great inheritance. The desert is where you trade a slave's mentality for a warrior's conviction. Possess the vision first, and the land will follow. You must possess the vision within you before you can truly possess the land. Lesson 19. When you feel forgotten, He feeds you still. They were a vast, needy multitude, 3 million people, totally dependent on God's morning mercy. The logistics of feeding them for 40 years are staggering, almost impossible to comprehend. Yet not once, not a single morning in 40 years, did the manna fail to fall. The source was unseen, the method was strange, but the constancy was absolute. This sheer consistency of his daily grace, this unwavering appearance at your tent door, is the profound, quiet proof that you're not forgotten. When you are old, or when you are stuck, or when you are hidden from the world's eye, the fear whispers that you have faded from God's sight too. Look at the evidence. You are seen. You are known. You are utterly consistently provided for, even in the smallest, most hidden ways. The fact that you have what you need today, the air, the light, the breath, the gentle strength, is the current iteration of the manna. He doesn't need to speak thunderously to prove his love. He proves it by providing the necessity for your survival, day after gentle day. His constancy is the final, tender answer to your deepest fear. He is simply too faithful to forget the needs of his children. Quote, his constancy is the final, tender answer to your deepest fear. Lesson 20. Even here, every desert has a hidden spring. They face the most terrifying scenario of all in the wilderness. Not hunger, which the manna solved, but the utter, physical fear of thirst in a barren, endless place. The people murmured, they despaired, they threatened to stone Moses. Their vision had narrowed to a single desperate need: water. In that moment of deepest human failure and panic, God simply instructed Moses to strike the stone. And from the hardest rock, in the driest, most unlikely ground, pure, life-giving water came forth. It was a miracle of profound redemption and abundant supply. Consider that scene for a moment. Water does not naturally come from rock. The source of life was hidden entirely within the structure of the obstacle itself. The stone that blocked the path, the great immovable presence of rock, became the very instrument of their salvation. This is the divine paradox of the desert. God hides the deepest well in the hardest, most necessary rock. Perhaps the thing you feel is the hardest, the most immovable obstacle in your life right now, your grief, your persistent pain, the chronic lack of clarity, or the betrayal you cannot seem to move past. You view it as a granite wall, a place of death. But what if that obstacle, that grief, that persistent need, is exactly where God intends to reveal his supply? What if he needs you to strike the very thing you most want to avoid? The deepest, driest, most unproductive part of your life is not dead. It is simply waiting for God to strike the stone. A spring is coming, a fresh revelation, a sudden breakthrough, a moment of profound renewal that you could not have imagined in the heat of this day. This is the promise of Christ, the living water, that even when the ground of your existence is cracked and dry, he can flow into it, making the wilderness rejoice. The desert journey is designed, above all else, to teach you that life is not dependent on the conditions of the ground, or the strength of your resources, or the clarity of your vision, but entirely and absolutely on the presence of the giver. Even here, in the dust of your stagnation, life is not just possible, it is promised, because the source of life walks beside you. Keep your eyes open for the water. It is hidden, silent, and supernatural, but it is there and it is flowing toward you. The wilderness tested their dependence. The rock tested their trust. The water proved God's sufficiency. Rest your soul on that one truth. Your deepest resource is not in the map, but in the miracle worker. The deepest well is often hidden in the hardest, most necessary rock. We have walked through 20 quiet lessons, etched by dust and delivered by fire. The sum of all those lessons, the final, ringing truth carved into the stone of the wilderness, is this. In the desert, they learned that the greatest miracle was not the destination itself, but the presence of God traveling with them. The manna, the water, the fire, the cloud, the entire 40-year curriculum, it all pointed to one truth that sustains every lonely, forgotten mile. He's absolutely, quietly, profoundly enough. He was enough for the 40 years of wandering, and he is enough for you today, in the center of your slow season. The true goal of the desert was not merely to get them out of Egypt, but to get Egypt out of them. It was to replace the memory of slavery with the experience of constant grace. Their identity shifted from being Pharaoh's property to being God's peculiar possession. When you feel stuck, remember that this season is doing the same work in you. It is replacing what is temporary with what is eternal. It is teaching you to cherish the invisible manna more than the visible harvest. He is enough, not just when the cloud moves, but when the cloud stops. Perhaps your life has felt like 40 years of circles. You feel the deep fatigue and the quiet humiliation of standing still while the world rushes past, achieving, accomplishing, and moving on. The same old problems return, the same doubts rise, and the scenery of your struggle never seems to change. You feel you've wasted time. You worry you have nothing left to show for the years. But listen closely, friend, and let this truth settle deep into your weary soul. Circles in God's hands are not wasted motion. They are not mistakes or detours of judgment. Circles in God's hands are training grounds for eternity. He is not punishing you. He is patiently walking with you, refining you, stripping away all that is heavy and temporary so that you will be light enough, ready enough, and humble enough to receive and sustain the promise when it finally arrives. He's making you capable of carrying the next great blessing without breaking under its weight. This is the quiet cultivation of a life fully dependent on grace. Remember, the delay is evidence of intentional love. God is giving you the endurance, the humility, and the quiet spiritual muscle necessary for the joy that is coming. Do not resent the slow pace. Do not despise the small beginnings. Cherish the presence of the guide more than the speed of the journey. Your faithfulness in the stillness is the most beautiful worship you can offer him. The desert season always, always ends. It is temporary. The cloud will rise again. The command to cross will be given. The inheritance will open before you, and you will forget the weariness of the journey in the overwhelming joy of the arrival. But today, right now, as you feel stuck, let your heart find rest in this one simple, sustaining truth. You are not wandering alone. You are not lost. You are being led by the loving, unhurried, and perfect hand of the Almighty. Rest in the quiet certainty of his companionship. Rest in the knowledge that your enduring faith is the greatest testimony you can give to a confused world. Let us close with a final, peaceful benediction over this season of stillness. Heavenly Father, for the one who feels stuck, who is tired of the long season and the silent waiting, let your presence be profoundly felt. Quiet the anxious heart with the truth of your constancy. Help us to see the manna today and tomorrow and the day after. Give us the faith of Joshua to believe in the promise and the patience of the generation that endured your perfect refining plan. We surrender the need for speed. We choose to believe that the long way was always the safest way. We trust your timing, your provision, and your sovereign purpose. Even when the sand is dry and the silence is long, when we feel stuck, may we remember this above all. You are still moving, loved, and fully led in the heart of God. May your heart be at peace. If this word has brought you a measure of relief and renewed trust, please help us share this quiet hope with others who feel stuck. The simple act of subscribing and leaving a comment below tells the algorithm to pass this peaceful moment on to another weary soul. Thank you for walking this journey with us. Go now and walk in quiet faith.